successful lawyer and faces major problems after starting a forbidden relationship with her stepson, Theo. One morning, she finds her husband, Pierre, frantically packing. He tells her he's going to Genova to pick up Theo, their son, who is suspended from school. Pierre wants Theo to move in with them and is immediately annoyed by Theo's messy habits. Despite Theo's messy habits, and sees that he gets along well with his stepsisters, Angela and Serena. They even give him a handmade keychain as a gift, which Theo loves and thanks them for. Later, Anne finds the keychain outside but picks it up. Inside, she's happy to see Theo openly playing with the girls. When Theo sees Anne, he quickly leaves the room. Later that night, Pierre comes home from work, tired and angry. Over dinner, he complains about his job, and listens and tries to cheer him up by suggesting they make love. As Pierre gets undressed, he tells Anne he's worried about getting older, especially after Theo made comments about his age. Theo had told Pierre that he adopted Angela and Serena because he felt guilty for not being there for Theo. Theo even suggested Pierre was old enough to be their grandfather. While Pierre found Theo's comments hurtful and saw Theo's good relationship with the girls as a positive trait, Pierre became quiet but then initiated intimacy with Anne. Afterwards, feeling insecure about his age, he sought reassurance and comforted him, saying she found older men more attractive and desirable. Anne's words comfort Pierre. The next day, Pierre gently tells Theo not to smoke inside. Theo agrees, but Pierre enters the room for a serious talk. He reminds Theo how welcoming they've been and hopes Theo will show the same respect. Theo unenthusiastically agrees and asks his dad to leave, claiming he's busy on his phone. When Pierre asks what he's doing, Theo says he's working. Pierre, doubtful, presses Theo about his work, but Theo avoids the questions. Pierre then accuses him of being a freeloader. Theo ignores the accusation, so Pierre tries to take his phone, causing Theo to get angry. Hurt by Theo's disrespect, Pierre gives back the phone and leaves. Soon after, Anne and her friend Mimi arrive to find the house a mess, and calls Pierre to tell him their house was robbed. While Anne is on the phone reporting the robbery, Theo casually appears and asks what happened, and answers him and tells him to check his room for missing items. After Theo leaves, Mimi comments on how kind he seems, and however says Theo acts like she's not there, but she's okay with it for now. The next day, Anne gives good news to her client, Sarah, and Sarah's father, Mr. Ivar. The court granted Mr. Ivar custody of Sarah. In thanks, Mr. Ivar tries to shake Anne's hand but accidentally spills her coffee on her papers and skirt. Mr. Ivar apologizes, but Anne tells him it's fine. After cleaning up, Anne finishes sharing the good news, reminding them to make the most of this opportunity. Later, while changing, Anne finds the keychain in Theo's pants. This confuses her since she had put it in her bag, and her bag was stolen during the burglary. Suspicious, Anne confronts Theo, who acts like he doesn't care. With no other option, Anne directly asks him how the keychain got into his pocket. Instead of answering, Theo shows he's annoyed by Anne's prying, and keeps pushing him for an explanation, but Theo remains stubborn and shows no regret about the house burglary, and threatens to tell Pierre about his behavior, but Theo doesn't care and even dares her to call the police. Realizing Theo won't give in, Anne makes a deal. She won't tell Pierre if Theo makes an effort to be part of the family, and will then watch to see if he keeps his word. Right after their talk, Theo starts to open up. He sees Anne struggling with her daughter's swimming gear and quickly helps her, which Anne appreciates. He asks about the gear, and Anne explains she's going swimming with the kids and invites him along, which he happily accepts. During their outing, Theo notices and hasn't joined them in the river. He invites her, but she declines, saying she's not in the mood. Theo playfully reminds her about integrating into the family, making her smile. Before Theo can ask Anne again, the girls call him back to the water and he goes, not wanting to miss out, and quickly decides to join them too. The next day, Anne and Theo are on the patio, and asks if he misses Genova, but Theo says he hates it there and the people, and suggests he invite friends over, but Theo admits he has none, and says she doesn't either, and they both laugh. Then, Anne notices a tattoo on Theo's forearm and asks him about it. Theo proudly shows Anne his self-made tattoo and offers to give her one, and refuses, fearing the pain. Theo then gently grabs her arm, touching the spot for the tattoo. When she still says no, he playfully moves his hand closer to her inner elbow and pulls her arm away, but Theo insists a tattoo there would be classy. After he keeps asking and finally agrees, and Theo starts the tattoo session. despite the pain, and enjoys spending time with Teo. One night, and hears Teo and a woman talking. Teo introduces her to Amanda, then quickly takes Amanda to his room, making and feel uneasy. Days later, and skips a boring gathering with her guests. She sees Teo about to buy cigarettes, and he invites her along. They go to a bar for a drink, after some alcohol, and brings up Amanda in their conversation, and asks Teo if Amanda is his girlfriend, but he says no, explaining she's just a conquest and they have an open arrangement. Teo then asks and if her relationship with his father is true love. Instead of answering, and talks about how sick she felt as a child hearing her mother's stories about many men. Teo asks if her mother had many partners, and confirms it. Then Teo asks if and has had many men too, but avoids the question by drinking. Teo gets a text and says he has to leave, and asks if it's from Amanda, but Teo playfully avoids answering. Soon after, and returns home happy, while Pierre is very worried. He asks where she's been, but lies, saying she went for a walk. This upsets Pierre, especially since they had guests. He tells her her sudden disappearance was disrespectful and she should act normally, and however, is unfazed and says the gathering was boring, and tells Pierre she hopes he won't become boring, as it doesn't suit him. The next evening, and visits Teo in his room while he's watching a show on his phone. He invites her to watch with him and she agrees. As they watch, the tension grows, and Teo initiates a kiss, leading to them making love. Afterwards, and feels guilty and tells Teo to forget what happened and never do it again. However, Teo doesn't promise, instead asking her if she enjoyed it. Despite her hesitation, and admits she enjoyed it, but expresses regret. Teo tries to calm and tease her, but isn't amused. Teo then says she has a meeting and she leaves his room. In the following days, Teo spends time with his stepsisters in the backyard. Later, he offers who's sunbathing a beer. She accepts, and he sits beside her, beginning to interview her with a dictaphone. His initial questions are innocent, aimed at getting to know her. However, as the interview continues, Teo's questions become suggestive. Teo asks about her first sexual experience, making her uncomfortable, so she refuses to answer. He asks why she can't answer, and bluntly states that some things shouldn't have happened. Teo then asks if she's referring to their relationship, but disappoints him by denying anything happened between them. Despite this, Teo stubbornly believes they are in a relationship and kisses her. He asks about her first time again, but still refuses. In response to her reaction, Teo kisses her as an apology. The next day, and visits Sarah, concerned because she hasn't heard from her. Sarah acts strangely, making suspicious. When they hear Sarah's father's voice, Sarah's mood changes, and suggests a walk, hoping Sarah will open up, but Sarah refuses and tells her to leave. Outside, and calls Child Protection Services to get Sarah's case file. Later, while helping and set up tables for Serena's birthday, Teo becomes overly touchy with Anne. Teo shows an affection in front of her daughters, and pulls away and scolds him. Later, at the party, Serena asks to fill her water gun, and goes to the shed, and Teo follows, hugging her from behind despite her protests. Teo persists, causing to lose focus and eventually give in. Unbeknownst to them, Mimi witnesses their affair. Disappointed, Mimi walks away, ignoring Anne's attempts to stop her. The next day, Anne scolds Teo in the garden for his behavior yesterday. She tells him to keep their secret to protect their family's reputation. Though upset, Teo promises, and feels relieved. Teo then asks if she's ending their affair, and she confirms, saying it must stop so he can live his life. Realizing it's over, Teo asks for a goodbye kiss, and grants it, and Teo says farewell. As he walks to the house, he suddenly shouts at Anne, still angry about their breakup. Teo shouts that Anne will envy all his future girlfriends and realize she doesn't need him. The next morning at breakfast, Pierre tells Anne he's taking a week off to bond with Teo, and is rattled, fearing Pierre will discover their affair. Still, she acts calm and agrees it's a good idea. Teo watches them from the window that evening and searches Teo's nightstand for his dictaphone, hoping to find and get rid of the recording of their conversation about their affair, and finds the tape, quickly takes it, and leaves. The next day, agitated, she drops her daughters off for horseback riding. While driving home, she gets distracted by her ringing phone and crashes her car. With no other option, and her daughters take a cab home. They're surprised to see Pierre's car already there. The girls rush to their father and tell him about Anne's accident. but Pierre doesn't seem worried. Later, Anne serves dinner and wonders where Theo is. Pierre tells her Theo won't join them, and Anne assumes he's with Amanda. Pierre confirms this, giving an appointed look. During dinner, Pierre tells a story about mice on their trip. His story, however, hints at Anne's affair, describing mice as troublesome for constantly reproducing and needing to be dealt with, and goes quiet, and Pierre notices. Pierre asks Anne why she isn't eating, and she replies she has no appetite. That evening, Pierre tells Anne that Theo confessed their affair, and stays quiet, but when Pierre pushes her to tell her side, she tries to save herself. Instead of the truth, and calls Theo a liar and miserable. Troubled, Pierre admits he initially didn't know what to believe, but Theo's story makes him wonder why Theo would lie about something like that, and argues Theo made it up for attention, saying it's unlikely she'd get involved with a teenager. Despite Anne's excuses, Pierre doesn't believe her because Theo described their affair in great detail. Angered, Anne storms out, reminding Pierre of all her efforts to make Theo feel comfortable. In their room, Anne quickly packs a bag. Pierre tries to stop her, but Anne ignores him, making him feel guilty by suggesting Theo's confession was revenge for Pierre abandoning him. Pierre begs Anne not to leave, unsure whom to believe, and seizes the chance, calling Theo a monster and blaming him for the house burglary. She claims she kept Theo's bad behavior a secret to protect their relationship and give him a second chance, and insists Theo is doing all this to get rid of her and have his father back, calling Pierre naive for being so easily manipulated. Fearing he'll lose his wife, Pierre is now terrified. Fearing he'll lose, and Pierre tearfully hugs and kisses her. The next morning, Pierre confronts Theo in the living room, scolding him for accusing Anne of an affair. Theo, feeling betrayed, looks at a remorseless Anne. He insists he didn't lie and urges Anne to tell their story. However, Pierre orders him to apologize to his wife, and confidently tells Pierre not to worry, and then scolds Theo as if he's just an attention-seeking child. This deeply hurts Theo, who calls them both crazy. Pierre again orders Theo to admit he lied, unknowingly breaking Theo's heart, and then gently urges Theo to lie, making herself look innocent. Instead, Theo abruptly leaves. Soon after, Theo is packed and ready to go, despite his sisters wanting him to stay. Feeling helpless, he hugs them goodbye. At Anne's office, her coworker tells her Theo is there, and calls him into her office, and they discuss what happened earlier. Theo threatens to press charges against Anne if she doesn't tell Pierre the truth, and, confident their situation isn't a crime and that Theo lacks proof, refuses. She tells him to just tell Pierre he lied. Realizing his efforts are pointless, Theo stomps out of her office. A few days later, Anne attends a meeting with Theo's lawyer, where Theo formally presses charges against her, and tries to use her connections with the lawyer to her advantage. But he won't give in. With no other choice, Anne accepts his terms and leaves, saying goodbye to a shaken Theo. Later that evening, Anne hears a loud noise downstairs. She goes to investigate and finds a drunken Theo banging on the door. She asks why he's there, and he says he wants to see her. Confused, Anne reminds him of their agreement, but he ignores it. Driven by desire, Theo kisses Anne, who tries to push him away. Despite Anne's resistance, Theo's influence is too strong, and she gives in. After their intimate moment, Anne returns to her room. A sleepy Pierre asks about the noise, and lies, saying a drunk Theo visited and she called him a cab. Pierre notices she's cold, so Anne hugs him, burying her face in his neck. She calls out Pierre's name, but he shushes her, telling her to go back to sleep.